Pak Tiam, if you are ready, you may want to start.
Oh, okay. I think all the speakers, Chairman is in, SSTO is in, Pak Chris is in, Pak Rosman is in. Okay. All right.
I'm here as well, Jauhari.
Yes, Ambassador.
Pak
Okay, we shall start.
Kabar.
Okay.
Pak Dubes Jauhari di itu Pak dekat Pak Rosan tuh di situ Pak. Isi
Ya,
dekat.
tuh. Kelihatan.
Apa kabar Pak Jauhari, Excellency?
Sehat. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Sehat-sehat juga semua ya.
Ya. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, Pak Tiam, you may wish to start.
Okay, good. So, Excellency, Nurul Swajaya, Indonesian Ambassador to Singapore. His Excellency Johari, Indonesian Ambassador to China. Mr. SSTO, SPF Chairman, Pak Rosan, Kadin Chairman, distinguished guests and speakers. Very good morning to all. My name is Tien Tai Chiu from SPF. I oversee the ASEAN portfolio in SPF. I'm actually delighted to be the moderator for this morning webinar. Let me first extend my warmest welcome everybody to this morning's webinar on the opportunities arising from the decentralization of global supply chains, which was put together by Indonesian Embassy in Singapore and supported by Singapore Business Federation and Kadin Indonesia. By now, all of us are aware that the COVID pandemic has disrupted the way we live, work, and play. But it has also created many opportunities, one of which is the opportunity arising from the trend of decentralization of global supply chain. This morning, the distinguished panels of speakers will be sharing and discussing Indonesia's preparedness for the post-COVID-19 environment, including incentives and industrial parks facility in Indonesia. I believe today's topic will be of interest to many investors and manufacturers seeking to diversify their manufacturing base into ASEAN region. Looking at the lineup of a group of very distinguished speakers today, I'm very confident you'll gain a lot from this morning's webinar. Before I introduce the first speaker, let me quickly settle some administrative matters. As we have many speakers today, each speaker will have 10 minutes speaking time, followed by about 20 minutes of Q&A at the end of all the speeches. Please feel free to enter with your question anytime during the webinar. You can find the tab below or on top, depending on which devices you use. And also to speed up the Q&A, please state the person you are referring your question to. So without further ado, let me introduce the first speaker, His Excellency Ambassador Nurul Swajaya, Indonesian Ambassador to Singapore. His Excellency was appointed as Indonesian Ambassador to Singapore in February 2016. Besides performing his diplomatic duties, His Excellency is also a very strong advocate and promoter of bilateral and investment ties between the two countries. Can I now invite Ambassador to deliver your opening remarks? Ambassador, please.
Thank you, Pak Tian. A very good morning to all of you. It really gives me a great honor to welcome all distinguished speakers who are not distinguished, but also they are the one who are doing it on the field in terms of investment and economic cooperations with Indonesia. Allow me to take this opportunity to thank all of you, the speakers, especially also good friends of mine, Mr. SSTO, the chairman of SBF, Pak Roslani, president of Kadin, my senior, Pak Ambassador Jauhari Oratmangun, Pak Chris Wilwan, Pak Semi Iskandar, and and Pak Stanley Ang, who your kind contribution to share with us your thought as well as what we should do in the context of the post-COVID economic recovery will really provide great benefits to all of us who are participating in this webinar. I wish also to thank Pak Tian Chai Chu from SBF for moderating this webinar. Let me also thank SBF as well as Kadin for its continuous support to all of us in making what the Rising 50 was all about before, to continue for mutual support between Indonesia and also Singapore. Economic predictions in the post-pandemic situation is indeed very gloomy. And most, if not all countries are in the contraction territory. Depending on how fast we will overcome the pandemic, but optimistically, it is predicted that we will be bounced back to the positive territory sometime next year. But let me underline the wisdom that we believe in many countries and also in many societies, that there is always silver lining in every crisis, or there is always blessing in disguise in every crisis. So let's moving from that point of view. Before I begin, let me start to a quick introduction about Indonesia, if I may have my presentation. So, well, of course, everybody who are following this webinar should be familiar with Indonesia. But just to give you a sense where Indonesia is located, I will give you this. This is Indonesia, where it is situated in the region, and also the next slide. This is Indonesia if you compare with the size of the US. So to give you a sense where we are and how big Indonesia is, I think we need also to make everybody familiar. Thus, when you are looking at the location and the sizable area, which is supported by also young demographic, creative and fast learning people, I think Indonesia is really offering a best location for industries to relocate in the context of the decentralization of the global supply chains. I have also to admit that there are perhaps constraints which has already been confronted by investment in the past, but I think we are open, and also we are also listening to all of those constraints, and we are also trying to work in order to address all of those constraints. Over the past years, relocation have been taking place, and many other industries are also planning to start looking for a more competitive production base. This has been driven by many factors. Prominent among them are the optimization of global supply chains, Brexit, trade wars, pandemic COVID-19. The pandemic COVID-19 especially expediting all of the process of decentralization of global supply chains so as to enable for effective response in the future when we are facing the same situations, which hopefully we are not going to do. We are not going to have the same situation also in the future. Some have started and many others are developing their plan to be executed as the pandemic situation gets better. To optimize the global supply chains, evaluation of many industries are continuously taking place to make sure they remain competitive. And in this context, many countries, including Indonesia and ASEAN, provide opportunities within the context of ASEAN Economic Community. As the largest country in size, demography, as well as the geographic location, I think Indonesia provides the best options. Brexit and trade wars have made companies, big and small, to adjust in the global supply chains. It impacts its long-term, and moving production base should also take many aspects into considerations. In this regard, our region provides better options and conducive environment. Similarly, also in the context of the post-pandemic situations. Next again. So McKinsey provides short-term response expected for companies to strategize in the whole process. Based on many indicators, Indonesia provides best options to be included as part of the decentralization process of global supply chains. As the country has been working very closely with Singapore as the regional hubs for many international companies, and we are also working within the spirit of rising spirit, both Indonesia and Singapore can potentially work together to attract investment in this context. The President Joko Widodo, welcome certainly foreign direct investment, and the government providing incentive that fits the needs to reshape the global supply chains to be more competitive. From the trend of Indonesia export, we have seen an increase of semi-finished industrial product export to many countries. And from this statistic, we can see, go ahead further. So we can see that this is the increase of the Indonesian semi-finished products, but we also inviting companies and industry to develop their downstream industries in Indonesia. The government has developed a roadmap to economic recovery post-COVID-19, and all the necessary requirements are in place to service the needs, including also the availability of more than 100 industrial zones, which Pak Semi will elaborate further. I'm also glad that we have also Ambassador Jauhari Oratmangun in our discussion this morning. The ambassador is also very active in promoting Chinese investment to Indonesia. I think Pak Jauhari will be able to give us really a good perspective on where we are now, what we should anticipate in the context of this decentralization process of the global supply chains. But last but not least, I would like to emphasize here, if colleagues who are not aware yet of the term rising here. Rising is, in fact, the tagline for the bilateral cooperation between Indonesia and Singapore when we are celebrating our 50th anniversary of bilateral relation back in 2017. Rising 50 is the spirit where Indonesia and Singapore committed to work together in order to take the benefits of investment opportunities to Indonesia. We will collaborate very closely with many agencies as well as institutions in Singapore to attract investment to come to Indonesia, not only on Industry 4.0, digital economy, but also we would like to work together in attracting small, medium, big companies to come to invest in Indonesia. So in this context, I'm very happy also to take this webinar opportunity to launch our website on the roadmap to the Indonesia Investment Day 2020. This is our flagship event. We have already organized this for the past 2 years, and this year we are planning to do this in October. Hopefully this is going to be able to be held in a physical attendance by all of the participants. But if not, of course, we can use the technology to certainly participate in this Indonesia Investment Day 2020. So we will elaborate further at the end of the seminar. We will bring all of the participants to look at the website, which provide not only the ready to invest projects, which is curated by Indonesian institutions, in this case, Central Bank, which is located in 11 provinces throughout Indonesia. The roadmap will also provide webinar activities that will start to take place from August until October, taking different themes. So then to familiarize all of the participants in the Indonesia Investment Day 2020 with what we are offering, as well as how we can do of any help in order to facilitate investment to come to Indonesia. Finally, as I mentioned at the outset, there is always silver lining in every crisis. We hope with a better preparations, not only will we be able to weather the difficult seasons during the pandemic COVID-19, but also we would be better prepared as dust started to settle. So we will be able to execute what are planned by all of the industries in this context of the decentralization of the global supply chains. Let me once again thank all of you who are participating in these events, especially the speakers who are going to contribute their thought as well as information on this during this webinar. Let me just, play this video for you to warm you up about what the Indonesia Investment Day we are going to organize in 2020 in October.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ambassador, for that sharing of the latest development in Indonesia and the introduction of the Indonesian Investment Day 2020. To the participant, please stay back. As Ambassador has said, after the Q&A, there'll be a virtual tour of the website to show you further details of what's available in the coming IID 2020. Next, I'd like to call upon His Excellency Ambassador Johari Pramanggun, Indonesian Ambassador to China, who I believe is joining us from Beijing. Hi, Ambassador. His Excellency was appointed as Indonesian Ambassador to China in February 2018. So Ambassador Johari, can I invite you now to deliver your speech, please?
Thank you very much, Pak. Thank you very much, Ambassador Ngurah, Pak Rosan, their guest. Let me give you some information on the FDI in particular, investment from China to Indonesia back in the 2019. But first of all, let me express to you how grateful I am to be invited here to join this seminar, I call it. Hopefully I can make a short presentation. I don't have a PPT to be displayed, but I will make I will give you some information about the current status of the bilateral relation between Indonesia and China. This year, we are in fact celebrating 70th anniversary of diplomatic relationship between Indonesia and China. A lot of programs have been planned. Unfortunately, COVID is coming. So we emulate what's been doing by Ambassador of Singapore, Pak Ngurah, and the embassy. Here we call it RICH, R-I-C-H, meaning Republic of Indonesia and China. So we would like to become rich together. So I simply emulate what's been doing by Ambassador Ngurah Swajaya. Anyway, we are still make some plan to do some activities virtually or seminar like this. We already started back in April by launching our commemorative stamp, and then some activities already done in relation to COVID, how we fight COVID-19, and some of the economic activities we just started a few weeks ago. So let me give you some information about Indonesia and China bilateral relations, in particular in the investment sector. Last year, the realization of the investment coming from China to Indonesia, in fact, increased by 95.6%. Quite a lot, a big number. In fact, it started from the month of March last year. This is the data we received from Indonesian Investment Board. So we are quite optimistic for the 2020 back in January. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is coming, but you know, like Ambassador Ngurah already mentioned, that we are still doing our best to attract investment from China to come to Indonesia. And I was surprised as well that during the period of first quarter of this year, the realization of investment from China coming to Indonesia, it's amount $1.4 billion US. Let me give you some information about the trade first. Based on the custom data, Indonesia and China, why I have to mention trade? Because this was the first time for the last 10 years, we experienced surplus for trade between Indonesia and China only for first quarter. So I still cross my finger for second quarter. Based on the custom data, Indonesia-China trade volume during the month of January till April reached $24.1 billion US. Compared to 2019, it was decreases by 0.41% for some period last year. We are number 14 largest exporting countries to China, with the value of export 11.4, increased by 8.6% this first quarter of 2020. Indonesia ranks number 4 compared to other ASEAN countries in terms of its export to China. Number 1, Malaysia, number 2, Vietnam, and number 3, Thailand. With that trade statistic, we have to be able to do more, and then our potential products recording increase during this period. Tropical fruits by 22%, packaged fruits by 320%, canned fish by 92%, footwears by 24%, furniture 30%, and then processed food more than 200%, electronics increased by 14.4%. Of course, I think everybody already knew that national COVID-19 impacted badly in the first quarter China's economy. National growth affected due to the deflation on customer demand and industrial output. Clusters on manufacturing in China, in particular, many in the Wuhan and Hebei province, has affected the global supply chain as China become the factory of the world. Most of the manufacturers in the world has been relying their raw materials solely from China. Giving, for example, out of 200 something Japanese companies operating in China, 100 of 90, in fact, is located in Wuhan and Hubei. Several international companies, China has decided to relocate the factories to reduce the risk, as well as to find other alternative of raw material supply from other countries, despite being more costly. The impact of a factory's closure during lockdown in China and mass relocation has affected the unemployment rate and reduced the economic growth in China this year. I think economic growth in China contracted by 6.7% for the first quarter. For the past few years, the government of China has been focusing on transforming its economy from high-speed growth into a high-quality growth. So, within the context to achieve the goal, the government of China issued new policies to encourage high-quality economic growth by modernizing industries through Industry 4.0, robotic technology, digital information, research on future industry sectors such as space, renewable energy, biomedicine, and of course other sectors. So let me mention about the intention of at least two countries to relocate their industry due to the current situation in China. First, of course, the United States. The process of foreign company relocation from China, including American companies, has been going on since a few years back. The main reason for company relocation is due to the rising costs in China, which predicted to keep increasing along with the advancing of the economy of China. There are some push factors as well, including complicated business permit process and increasing labor pay. On the other hand, emerging economy countries offer a pull factor such as lower cost and opportunity for early access to growing market. There's also a political factor as United States is inclined to rely in China for its global supply chain products. The other factor was the trade war between United States and China has added the risk factor for relocation aside from rising cost factor. For US companies which has not planned to relocate its factories from China in the short term, they started to diversify its supply chain for materials from third countries such as Vietnam, Thailand, and of course, Indonesia. Other companies started to do transition phase by increasing production in other factories outside China. Of course, with the COVID-19 pandemic, industry resilience becomes the third factor for company relocation out of China. This concern was raised during the early phase of the pandemic when logistic line was abrupted by lockdown and the shutting down of industry activities. As for the Japanese companies relocation, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has also caused a disruption in Japanese industry, which has been relying heavily for component supply from China. And then, of course, China has been Japan's largest trading partners with export value up to 148 billion. In the mid of February 2020, the export was cut by half. In the period of January-February 2020, China industrial profit was reduced by almost 40%, while its industrial enterprises revenue was also reduced by almost 20% compared to the same period back in the 2019. Of course, manufacturing has the biggest loss, with revenue reducing down to 20%, almost 20%, and profit reduction down to almost 45%. Profit margin also recorded reduction from almost 6% by the end of 2019 to 3.5% in February 2020. Of course, the disruption on supply chain has affected every industry segment in Japan, especially in automobile manufacturing, which share 20% of the total Japan's export to the world. Based on the data from Teikoku Data Bank, there are at least 229 Japanese companies in Hubei province, China, in which 99 or 80% are located in Wuhan. Out of those 199, 92 companies, so like 46.2%, are manufacturing industries, in which the largest subcategory of those industries are in the sector of automotive, spare parts, and component. Those are some information data that we receive from institutions and government agencies in China. So this is an opportunity as well for Indonesia, reallocation of those two big countries, United States and Japan. And of course, Japan is very much related to the global supply chain. And if we already made some research on what kind of industry that will be reallocated from China, and in fact, some of that industries already established in Indonesia for more than 10 or 20 years. So this is the task for the government officials, for the manufacturers. Those manufacturers already established and existed in Indonesia to do some extra effort to the program of reallocation is in place, then they could come to Indonesia as well. I think with the United States, we already started at the highest level, a government official, and as well as the industries in Indonesia. So our embassy, it's open in Beijing for any information that you need. And I myself as well available if you need some more information about activities between Indonesia and China, in particular in this investment sector, trade sector, and of course tourism. Other things that we are working very hard as well in China to increase the presence of the digital industry, digital economy of China in Indonesia, because they are leading in that sector. I think digital economy in China contributed almost 30% to their GDP. And in fact, in Indonesia, our contribution, the digital economy sector, contributed around 3 to 4% to our GDP. And the many prediction that in the 2025, the valuation of the digital economy industry in Southeast Asian nation, in ASEAN, will be reached $250 billion US. And then, of course, China will play a great role as well in that era. So we, Indonesia, we would like as well to attract attention from digital economy sector, Internet of Things, IT, artificial intelligence, blockchain, to be able as well to participate in the digital economy development in the very near future. So once again, thank you very much for the opportunity. And of course, I'm open for the Q&A. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Ambassador Johari, for the detailed sharing. And it's nice to know that the trade and investment between Indonesia and China has increased substantially. Right. Next, it is my pleasure now to invite my chairman, Mr. S. Teo, Chairman SBF, to deliver his keynote speech. Chairman?
Thank you, Tai Chiu.
Yeah.
Thank you. His Excellency Nur Swaja, Ambassador of Indonesia to Singapore, and my old friend and good friend, Excellency Johar Otomangu, Ambassador of Indonesia to China, and another of my good friend, Pak Rosan, Chairman of Kadin, Pak Sani Iskandar, Chairman of Industrial Association of Indonesia, Pak Chris Uluwan, Chairman of Citramas Group and Nostar Digital Bank, Digital Park, and Pak Sandy Ang, President Director and CEO, Kandal Industrial Park. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of Singapore Business Federation, SBF, I'd like to thank His Excellency Nur Swaja and the Indonesian Embassy in Singapore for hosting this webinar, which is jointly supported by Kadin and SBF. Relationship between Indonesia and Singapore goes back a long way. Our history are intertwined, and our people are linked by deep ties on culture and economics. Today, Singapore and Indonesia enjoy excellent bilateral relations underpinned by strong economic cooperation. Our bilateral trade reached US 42.1 billion last year, and Singapore has been a top foreign investor in Indonesia since 2014, with investment that spread across a wide range of sectors such as manufacturing, finance, real estate, energy, and logistics. For the first quarter of 2020, Singapore FDI into Indonesia was US 2.72 billion, making Singapore the largest foreign investor in Indonesia. The Embassy of Indonesia here has always played an important and active role in bringing our two countries closer together. Under Ambassador Nur Swaja leadership, the people-to-people and business-to-business ties have not only broadened but deepened. Strategic initiative such as collaboration on the Kandal Industrial Park is a testament of Ambassador's unwavering commitment to strengthen our bilateral ties. Kandal Industrial Park is a partnership between Japapico Group and Samcorp Development to develop a modern and integrated industrial park in Central Java. I'm happy to hear that the development are going well, and I'm sure you'll hear more of it from Pak Stanley in his presentation later on. COVID-19 has placed the global economy in an unprecedented crisis. Singapore has recently moved out of our circuit breaker, and we're opening up our economy and society progressively and safely. Like Indonesia, Singapore's key priorities are to protect lives and livelihoods while dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic effectively and openly. Singapore is committed to working with Indonesia and the international community to progressively rebuild and strengthen our economies for the benefit of our businesses and people. In fact, I would say that this is the first webinar among the ASEAN countries that I'm attending. The theme for today's webinar is well chosen. The COVID-19 pandemic has created major disruption in the global supply chain. Many countries have had to reevaluate and reformulate their business strategy to build resilience and sustainability. And just as Ambassador Johari actually have mentioned, companies around the globe are shifting away from the over-reliance on certain geographic areas. Proximity is now important. Companies are also investing into smart manufacturing, while digitalization and digital capabilities run across all operations in the supply chain. Southeast Asia, as a fast-growing region, will increasingly play a rising role in this area and is poised to benefit from this supply chain relocation. In particular, with Indonesia 4.0, the country will experience a revolution in manufacturing with major innovation in digital technology, connectivity, and in the use of information. This will lead to a more efficient economy as well as a higher quality output from the industrial sector. Indonesia is expected to become one of the leading global players and exporters in the area of food, drinks, automotive, textile, electronics, and chemicals, to name a few. I'm happy to say that as a result of our deepening ties, our two economies are becoming more integrated even during this difficult period of COVID-19. Indonesia, being a close neighbor of Singapore, provide ample opportunities for Singapore companies to recalibrate their supply chain and production strategy into the post-COVID-19 environment. Based on SBF National Business Survey 2019-2020, Indonesia is one of the top 3 countries for overseas expansion by Singapore companies. It has been so for the last 9 years. To help a company keep abreast of development in Indonesia during COVID-19 period, SBF have organized 3 webinars over the last 3 months to share insight on the impact of COVID-19 on Indonesian economy, as well as the potential opportunities such as manufacturing and services. Many companies are eagerly looking towards to visit Indonesia, and SBF already has plans to organize business mission and study trip to Indonesia once travel is allowed. I'm certain the COVID-19 has also created many new opportunities for businesses in Indonesia and Singapore to work together. As Ambassador Raja said, there's always a silver lining. I totally agree. In addition, SBF, in partnership with Enterprise Singapore, has launched a new initiative called Global Connect at SBF to assist Singapore companies looking into internationalization for the first time and those who are expanding their presence in key ASEAN market and emerging markets. Global Connect SBF is a one-stop center that offers market advisory and project facilitation for Singapore companies that are ready to expand overseas. We're happy to announce that we'll be setting up SBF Overseas Office under the Global Connect at SBF in Jakarta by end of this year. We have engaged Mr. Isamuddin bin Abdul Bakar as our Indonesia country head, who will be the dedicated person to handle Indonesia for SBF. This overseas office will provide in-market assistance to Singapore businesses and work closely with Indonesian companies and agencies to facilitate business opportunities. Now let me say a few words about a warm and close relationship with Kadin. In September 2017, Kadin and SBF signed a strategic partnership agreement to help businesses from both countries forge strong partnership together. Earlier this month, I had the opportunity to engage Pak Rozan, my brother, chairman of Kadin, and his key members via Zoom to update him about the COVID-19 situation in Singapore. We discussed how both organizations could explore ways to collaborate to support our businesses during this challenging period. More important, we are looking forward. Both organizations have agreed to focus on win-win opportunities in healthcare, fintech, and digital sectors in Indonesia. In February this year, as chairman of SBF, I led a 30-member delegation of Singapore coming to Indonesia, accompanying the President of Singapore, Madam Halimah Yacob, on the first state visit to Indonesia. We had an excellent discussion with Kadin members in Jakarta. The meeting was very fruitful and it's allowed our business to understand the development in Indonesian economy and investment opportunities. We were also updated on the much-awaited Omnibus Law, which, as I understand, will be passed this year. We look forward to an even closer partnership with Kadin in furthering the business relationship and opportunities. I've been told that Ambassador Swaja will be completing his posting in Singapore soon. In fact, as I say, he actually came to Singapore in February 2016, and time flies. You know, it's as if he just came last month. So, on behalf of SBF and the whole Singapore Business Committee, I'd like to express my heartfelt appreciation to Ambassador Swaja for his energy, passion, and dedication in building a strong relationship between our two countries, as well as our two business community. He's a good friend of Singapore, and we wish him great success in his new endeavor. On this note, I wish everyone good health. Please enjoy the webinar. Thank you and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. S.S. Teo, Chairman SBF.
Thank you.
Now, as many of you know, SBF is the apex chamber in Singapore. And the apex chamber in Indonesia is the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or in short, we call it Kadin Indonesia. I would like to now invite Pak Roslani, Chairman of Kadin Indonesia, to deliver your keynote speech. Pak Rosan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chiu. Well, first of all, good morning to all of you. Especially, we have two excellencies from two very important countries to Indonesia. Excellency Bapak Ngurah Swajaya, Excellency Bapak Johari Oratmangun, because Singapore and China is the two biggest foreign direct investor for Indonesia. So I think this webinar is very fruitful and very important for all of us. And also my colleague, also my good friend, Pak SSTO, Chairman of SBF, Pak Chris Wilwan, Pak Sani Iskandar, and also Pak Stanley, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to give my highest appreciation and also my honor to be invited by Excellency Bapak Ngurah Swajaya to this webinar, because Singapore is I can say, the most important partner in our business relationship. If I may share a little bit, 2 or 3 slides, so hopefully I can do this because something wrong with my laptop earlier. Okay, can you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, got it.
Okay. Well, I would like to share a little bit, about Indonesia's shares in other economics, global value chains, income from 2000, 2007, and 2017. Forgive me we don't have the updated number. The source from ADB in 2020. If we look at Indonesia contribution, the value added generated by Indonesia accounted, the highest is to Malaysia and Singapore, 1.7% and 1.1%. And also, actually, if you look at the top 5 countries, is Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, and Philippines. So among the ASEAN countries, Indonesia contribution to JFG is among the highest. Next. Oh, sorry, I think I put the wrong one. Okay, and then JFC and FDI is go hand in hand. So it is a very important for Indonesia climate to be improved, and we've been doing a lot of things to make sure to improve our ease of doing business, to improve our investment climate, to improve our industrial climate. Since also mentioned earlier by Chairman of SBF SSTO about Omnibus Law. Well, we've been working for Omnibus Law, which is the structural reform that's been happening now in Indonesia. Now is in the parliament, and actually, hopefully, I strongly believe that the parliament will pass the Omnibus Law the latest by August. And we in that law we are simplifying a lot of policy, a lot of regulation, including the labor law, and also we most important thing, we also revise our negative investment list. Currently, Indonesia has 515 industry that close and half close to the foreign party. After this Omnibus Law passed, it's going to be only 6 that industry is still protected by close to the foreign party, which is like gambling, weapons, and then chemical chemical weapon, such as like that. So we'll be very open because we know that, again, we need to open up because Indonesia is one of the most, close in terms of FDI at this moment. So we will revise our negative investment list. So definitely we are getting more open. We are also try to improve our, our corporate tax been reduced since a month ago. So by 2021, our corporate tax reduced from currently around 25% to 22% by 2021 and 2022, and then it will reduce to 20% by 2023. And if you are a public listed company, so it will give another 3% incentive discount from those numbers. So again, we know that we need to push our productivity, our competitiveness. So that's why we do a lot of things when we are improving our incentive for tax allowance, for tax holiday. We also, have a lot, put a lot of incentive in industrial estate. I think our colleague Pak Sani and Pak Chris can elaborate on that part. But again, we know that we need to work with, especially with a lot of neighboring countries. We are still low in terms of part of global value chains. We are fully understand that one. That's why we with the current situation of the COVID-19, mentioned earlier by Excellency Pak Ngurah, a lot of countries, especially like US, European country, Japan, will relocate some of a lot of their companies to mostly, ASEAN countries is always the first priority to look at. And I think to capture that flow, we need to work together, because again, to strengthen the economic among ASEAN countries is very important for all of us, because they now they see us as a very huge potential with more than 600 million people in ASEAN countries. But again, Indonesia need to upgrade in terms of, again, like productivity and competitiveness. I mentioned it earlier. We also process of upgrading or improving the efficiency of internal process, upgrading, improving the quality of price performance, as well as through time to market or differentiate by introducing new product faster than the peers. Functional upgrading implies rising value added, and also interchanging assume moving to new, more profitable value chains where higher rent can be captured. I mentioned earlier there's a relocation from China, a quote by Mark Mobius, one of the worldwide investment guru. The companies will shift supply chains away from China after coronavirus crisis, and many firms looking to maintain their operation in Asia have turned toward Asian countries. So also, just want to capture on this one. Again, this I would like to mention a little bit, because even though I know Pak Sani and Pak Chris will have a better explanation about this one. Batam, Bintan, and Karimun, known as a BBK Special Economic Zone, I think should grab the opportunity from the manufacturing relocation from China. And definitely we need, with Singapore, we can work together to, Singapore is well-developed logistic connection, industrial park, and potential demand from multinational corporations seeking for lower cost environment. One would think that Batam has unbeatable business proposition. Three potential include electronics, shipbuilding, due to the BBK strategic location. And BBK can be a production hub for shipbuilding and ship maintenance, oil and gas. BBK can develop to be hub of the midstream, also downstream, and also for oil field equipment and services. Also, our president also signed Government Regulation Number 1/2020 concerning the implementation of special economic zone on 6 January 2020. This is also from the World Economic Forum in 2020. Here's how global supply chains will change after COVID-19. And if we see it also in line what we discussed it today also, is we will also see a decentralization of manufacturing capacity with company looking to bring production home. So again, we see this Asian country is our home, so definitely we need to work together to grasp this opportunity. Well, I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Rosan, for that insightful speech, especially on the new omnibus law, which I think we are very eager for it to be passed. Okay, moving on. Let me welcome Pak Sani Iskandar, Chairman Industrial Estate Association of Indonesia, to share about the landscape of industrial parks in Indonesia. Pak Sani, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tian Chiu and Mr. Teo, to invite me from Industrial Estate Association of the Indonesia. So, good morning, the Excellencies, Pak Ngurah Swajaya, Pak Johari Oratmangun, my Chairman INCAD Indonesia, Pak Rosan Roslani, and also my friends, Pak Grace Wiluan and Pak Stanley Eng. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, first of all, I want to explain a few regarding with the Industrial Estate Association of the Indonesia, or in bahasa we call Himpunan Kawasan Industri, HKI or HKI. So yeah, we established on the June 1988. So means that it is already 32 years ago to engage with the development of the management of the industrial estate in Indonesia. So the objective of the HKI are to strengthen the roles of the industrial estate as a tool for industrialization by encouraging the members to provide well-planned and developed industrial land with all necessary infrastructure and supporting services to the manufacturing industry. So HKI also been involved to set up some policies and regulation of the industrial park matters together with the government. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, this is the development of the industrial estate that has been widely spread off across in many regions in Indonesia. So there are 96 industrial park and around 70 industrial park. It is already in operation. It is from Aceh, yeah, in the most west side, to the Maluku or Molucas in the most east side. But at this moment, mostly located of the our industrial park, it is in Java and in Sumatra Island, including Riau Island, especially in Batam. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, we can see that there are list of the 96 existing industrial estate spread off in the 21 province in Indonesia. So from Aceh, and then north, west, and south of the Sumatra, it is also including the Riau Island, Bangka Belitung, Lampung, Jambi, and also Riau Inland. Also in Jakarta, surrounding Jakarta, including also Banten province, and also in West, Central, and East Java, and also in Kalimantan also, in East, West, and North Kalimantan, and also on the South Kalimantan, and also until to the South and Central Sulawesi, and the last it is in Maluku, We have spread of the industrial estate across on our country. So currently, there are 27 new and under development industrial parks. It is supported by the government through the RPJMN. It is such kind like a middle term development planning program by government of Indonesia. And mostly it is located outside of Java. So there are 25 industrial parks. Yeah, since the government of Indonesia want to increase the utilization of the natural resources space availability in Indonesia. So like agriculture and then mineral and also the marine products. And as a government regulation starting from the year 2009, so all new manufacturing industrial companies, it should be located inside of the industrial estate. So that's why industrial estate shall be available in the many region in Indonesia. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, it is some the benefit of the industrial companies when they located inside of the industrial estate. So number one, it is company can obtain the industrial lot size as required with the certainty ownership in accordance with the applicable special regional plan. And then number two, for the availability of the integrated facilities and infrastructure. So we provide all the necessary like water and wastewater treatment plant, electric power supply, telecommunication and data center provider, and some industrial parks, even they also have their own power plant and seaport. And then number three, it is for the environmental impact studies. It is also more simple. So it is just only refer to the industrial park environmental assessment study, or we call it is AMDAL. So no need to make more complicated studies. And then number four, it is for the building permit. It is also can be processed through the management of the industrial estate. Number five, it is through the program from the BKPM. It is the, we call it is CLIck, easiness of the direct construction investment. So when the investor already get the investment permit, so they can directly build the factories, while the building permit, it is our processes in the parallel. And then number six, it is for the some like facilities of the tax and also regional incentive. It is also provided, especially it is for the some industry that they have such kind like labor intensive industry and also such kind like advanced technology industry, and also for the some pioneer industry. And then the last, it is number seven, it is for the security purpose. Industrial park in Indonesia, it is also can be defined as a national vital object. Yeah. Next slide. It is the last slide from me. Yeah. To enhance the doing business in Indonesia, as Pak Rosan also already explained, that the government of Indonesia will launch a new business licensing regime in the form of the omnibus law. We call it as Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, to boost the competitiveness and also the bolster the investment. And through the omnibus law scheme, government will enhance job creation and simplify the investment procedure. And now, the new business licensing mechanism, it is also already through one government institution body. In this case, it is through the BKPM, the Investment Coordinating Board, with using the online single submission system. So means that it is already much easy to have investment in Indonesia. So thank you. And for the Q&A, very sorry since I also already informed to the Mr. Tian. So I will be represented by my chairman. It is Pak Nares. since I have another meeting that I cannot to be canceled. So it's very sorry for this matter. And once again, thank you.
Thank you, Pak Sani. Yes, for that information, informative sharing. As mentioned in our chairman's SSTO speech, he highlighted that Kendal Industrial Park was a successful case study between Singapore and Indonesian companies.
Yeah.
So I'm now happy to introduce Pak Stanley Ang, President Director and CEO of Kendal Industrial Park, to share about the industrial park and how KIP can be a partner to you in your expansion into Indonesia. Pak Sani, over to you, please.
Good morning, Mr. Tian. Thank you for the introduction, and good morning and well wishes to all, particularly to His Excellency Pak Nurah, our Indonesian Ambassador to Singapore, and thank you for organizing this seminar. His Excellency Pak Johari, Indonesian Ambassador to China, Mr. Teo, and thank you, Mr. Teo, just now for the kind remarks. Pak Rosan, Chairman of CADI Indonesia, and thank you and good morning to Pak Sani Iskandar, an old friend, and Pak Sani has been very helpful to Kendal Industrial Park. And good morning also to Mr. Chris Wilan, Chairman of Tritamas Group. Now, what I would like to do is to share the slide of, to share some information Now, today's topic, my speech will be standing at the door. I took inspiration, actually,
We can't see your slide.
Okay, I'm trying to share again. All right, thank you for telling me that. Can you see the slide now?
Yes, yes. Good.
All right. Okay, thank you. Now, I took inspiration. The title of today's sharing is Standing Right at the Door. Now, when I say the door, we're actually talking about the door of opportunity. Now, I took inspiration from this particular quote. The secret of success in life is for man to be ready for his time when it comes. Now, this particular quote is made by Benjamin Disraeli, former British Prime Minister. Now, it is very important for us actually to understand when we talk about opportunity, it comes. We may or may not be able to recognize it, but it comes. And are we ready? The first thing I would like to share is what we call the conventional locational model for industrialization. Now, this particular model has always been going on for what we know, probably during the industrial period. Number one, most companies or most industry would focus on the most competitive location, be it land, logistic, labor, whatever. They look for the most competitive advantage. Number two, they will overlay with what we call tax competitive location. So we are talking about free trade agreement, bilateral, tax incentive, etc. The overall and main purpose is to achieve the most competitive cost per unit of goods sold in a designated market. Let's say Europe, for example. They will look for some location where they have the best production cost overlaid with tax incentive, and that's where they want to locate. However, with the new COVID-19 pandemic, we have some changes. This is disruptive, and it causes us to review what we call a new way of looking at it. Now, the term new normal is very common now. It is a word that very often we say, we hear it in the media, we read it about it. It has different dimensions. When people talk about new normal, it could be a medical dimension. People talking about wearing masks, etc. There's a social dimension. People talking about social distancing, etc. But underlying that, there is an economic dimension. Now here, this is where we are interested. Particularly, how does COVID-19 affect industrialization? Two main things going to happen. Number one, the need to diversify to maintain operational sustainability. Now, this is what happened. A lot of companies, a lot of factories, they look for the what we call the most cost competitive industry, place for them to produce. But with the COVID situation, some of them realize that their own factory got knocked down. Their factory cannot produce. They have ordered, they cannot produce. Here, there is a realization for them to maintain what we call operational sustainability and reliance. They need to look for alternative. The second factor here is there's a need to source for alternative supply chain. Now, there's also a realization here is that even though they may be able to produce, they can operate. What happened to their supply chain partners? Can they proceed? Can they supply them? These two factors actually is now dominating most industrial players in the post or what we call current COVID pandemic situation. Now, before I go into some example, I would like to give a slight background of Kendal Industrial Park so that becomes a basic understanding so you can understand the situation. First, this is Indonesian map. I think just now His Excellency Pak Johar has shared it before. And then if you look at it just now in the right bottom corner, there's a quotation by Pricewaterhouse that said optimism that Indonesia will become the world's 5th largest economy by 2030. Now, that's a very something that we should bear in mind. This is Java Island. It shows a map of Java Island. Kendal is actually in central Java. We are 5 hours away from driving distance from Jakarta, 3 hours driving distance to Surabaya. This is central Java itself. We have a total population of 34.2 million and a huge youth population of 17.3. This is what we call a huge demographic bonus. And this Kendal itself, it has a population of roughly 1 million people. And again, we see a huge youth population of 500,000 people. This is the distance, a map of Kendal Industrial Park from Semarang. We are 25 kilometers to the port, 21 kilometers to Semarang town itself, and 20 kilometers from the airport. Now, this is a master plan of Kendal Industrial Park. What you see is that we are actually clustering all the various different trade types so that there is a non-interference between different basic business types. Now, I'll share with you the 6 reasons why investors choose Kendal Industrial Park. Number 1 is great supporting macro infrastructure. Now, here, particularly, I would like to share with you that there's a proposed international seaport that will link right at Kendal Industrial Park. They will actually link with Tanjung Mas. And there's also a what we call a super port high toll that will link both of them together. Now, we are very competitive in terms of labor costs, currently at $162. Now, this compared favorably with China, which is average of $350 US. Huge human resources and training facility, one-stop solution. We basically helped industrial companies from startup until they are able to operate. Wholesome micro infrastructure, we provide water treatment, electricity, and special economic zone in tax incentive. As of 18 December 2019, Kendal Industrial Park has been designated as a special economic zone. Now, that means that investors will be able to enjoy special incentive. Next, I would like to share with you some very interesting anecdotal examples. Now, this example kind of give us a different dimension of what's going on. Now, number 1 example is Hong Kong Toy Company. This is the market leader in teen children play area in North Asia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China. Total investment of 100 million. We hand over the land to this particular company end of last year. They started to build beginning of this year. Now, very interesting. Throughout the pandemic, they did not slow down. In fact, they rush up their production. Their machine will be coming in by the end of next month, and they will do the trial production by end of August. Very interesting. The second company, a Japan steel fabrication company, investment estimate to be 80 million. We hand over the land to them end of last year. Again, they started the construction. We will expect them that with the COVID pandemic to slow down, but they did not. They have gone ahead with the production, the construction, and they plan actually to start production by end of this year. Next, again, very interesting. We have a China textile company, a Fortune 500 company, total investment 450. Now you see that they are doing the land development now. They did not stop. In fact, they hope to start the piling and construction middle of this month, middle of July, sorry. Next is a China electronic company. It's a leading OEM for home appliance. Total investment 200 million. Interestingly, the owner did not even get to see the land. He just rushed ahead, took over the land, and now is doing the soil tests. They plan to start the construction by middle of August. Again, this is another interesting example. Taiwan textile, this is the leading apparel in Taiwan, total investment 750. Now we will expect them with such huge investment, they will slow down. They did not. Now, they took 24 hectares from us. In fact, they asked us to hand over half of them ASAP so they can start doing the construction. Now, we will be handing over the entire site to them in 2 days' time. And they plan to start construction by August. Now, I have actually another very interesting example is that recently, in fact, I have to apologize to a Malaysian investor because the plot of land that he wanted, he's been purchased by another investor. To appease him, I actually have to offer him alternative. Now, all this is happening throughout the pandemic. Now, people would think, what's going on here? Ask this question to my investor. Are their business being affected? Why are they doing that? Why are they rushing their investment? Now, interestingly, all of them told me that their business are adversely affected. In fact, one particular investor told me that his business is being affected by 35% drop. Then I asked the question, why do you go ahead? Why don't you slow down? They give me various reasons, okay? Now, what I would like to do is I summarize the reason they gave me. Number one, this is my hypothesis. Number one, is that there is a consensus among them that the pandemic will not last forever. There will be a time it will stop. Some people say it's 1 year, some people say it's 1.5 years, whatever it is. There's a consensus that it will not last forever. Second, that some investors project that there will be a major rebound once the pandemic is over. Third, now with the pandemic, right, there is a great realization that they need to restructure the production and supply chain. And that realization stands that they cannot wait for the pandemic to be over. They have to start restructuring and planning now. Now, all this means one thing, new opportunity for industrial park providers like us, new opportunity for supply chain providers, and new opportunity for manufacturers themselves. So the question here we need to be asking is, are we standing at the door when the opportunity knocks? Are we ready when there is an opportunity? Now that's the question that we need to ask. So we see that all this changing, like what His Excellency Nora say, there's a rising opportunity. So the question is, are we standing at the door when the opportunity knocks? Now to do that, we offer you help, and for more information, you can actually contact us. That's my contact down there. You can actually contact us to see how we can help you to answer the opportunity questions and how we can help you to resolve your production needs. You can actually screenshot that and contact me. There's my contact number and my WeChat number. Now with that, I thank you. Mr. Tian, thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. For those who wants to ask question, please use the chat button because the meeting format So we don't have the Q&A button. So please use the chat button to post your question. Thanks. Last but not least, I would like to now invite Pak Chris Willem, Chairman of Citramas Group, to share on Indonesia's closest digital park to Singapore, the Nongsa Digital Park in Batam. So Pak Chris Willem, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tian. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for Ambassador Ngurah for inviting me to be one of the panelists. And my greetings to the speaker, my fellow speaker, SS Teo, Ambassador Johari. Last time, I think, if you still remember, we met in Batam. Of course, Rosan, we met in Jakarta. Pak Rosan, you promised me to come over to Batam. So I hope after the COVID, we can meet.
Yes.
Well, hopefully the pandemic be over soon, yeah. Pak Sani is not here, but of course, Mr. Stanley Ang, greetings to all of you. As we all know that Singapore is the main hub for the digital economy in the region. And with this pandemic, pushing a lot of companies based in Singapore to look at an acceleration of various digitalization process, increasing more solution and service to be done digitally. More companies need digital platforms to have more secure and faster transaction online. So this is where we have the concept of Nongsa Digital Park, which have also the background of Indonesia as an e-commerce market that is fastest growing in the world, part of a digital economy, adding to US 150 billion a year to gross domestic product by 2025. And Indonesia is the Southeast Asia biggest economy with a population of 255 million, experiencing explosive growth. Although during this past year, of course, it's slowed down because of various issues in the world and of course the COVID pandemic. But still the value of e-commerce increased by as much as US 15 billion over the next 3 years. So that's the background of Nongsa Digital Park, which next, as Ambassador Swajaya knows that he was one of the initiators, of course, the Rising 50, where we see the cooperation between Singapore requiring lots of the talents and support for expanding the digital hub in Singapore. And we have assigned in the Rising 50 cooperation to set up a Nongsa Digital Park, which we did in 2 years, and it's opened by the Foreign Minister of Singapore and Indonesia. And since then, we had 100 companies relocated to our digital park. And we have approximately about 1,000 Indonesian talents moving there, and large MNC such as AIA, FWD, and RGA came into the park. Next. Nongsa Digital Park actually is a concept is that we see that maybe about 10 years ago that digitalization will come over, whether we like it or not. So we started with a small digital animation studio, I think about 10 or 15 years ago in Nongsa. Why Nongsa? We feel that whatever it is, we see that Singapore is a hub of a digital economy, starting already then. And also that Nongsa has coming up with connectivity. We have, I think, the most connected place in Indonesia, where we have 8 or 9 fiber optics going out from Nong Sa to Singapore and the rest of the world. So Nong Sa Digital Park, we also want to develop an ecosystem comprising of infrastructure, talent, and enterprise solution. So it's very important for any relocation that we prepare all the infrastructure, the hard infrastructure. I mean, Nong Sa, it's only about 35 minutes away from Singapore, Tanah Merah, which is one of the ferry terminal nearest to the Singapore Changi Airport. Next. So this is a strategic proximity between Singapore and Batam. 35 minutes ride from Singapore. And there are about 20 ferry services a day serving 4 terminals in Batam. We have our own Nong Sa Pura ferry terminal in the Nong Sa Digital Park, which is closest to Singapore and less than 5-minute drive to Nong Sa Digital Park. Next. So I was mentioning about connectivity. Within the NDP zone, actually Digital Park zone, there are currently 6 cable landing stations and 7 submarine cable systems that through 13 dedicated cables connect Nong Sa to other parts of Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, and the US West Coast, and also Japan. Currently, another submarine cable system is undergoing the final phase of installation to link Nong Sa and there is, I think, in Kuching and Hong Kong. The availability of direct connectivity from Nong Sa Digital Park to Singapore allows an extremely low internet latency, one of the lowest in Indonesia, allowing a user experience similar to Singapore connectivity standards. So very fast connectivity, so almost live connectivity. Okay, that means that you can have a seminar directly there. You can have, for example, a lecture. This is another thing that we want to develop is the education field, especially now with the situation of travel. We would like to encourage or invite universities, basically for vocational studies, for example, for digital, to relocate to Nong Sa, so that we can educate and bring up our talent. At the same time, also provide them immediately job opportunity thereafter. So with the favorable geographical location, and we have also ideal seismic condition, where we are outside of the ring of fire, where we have own security and a possibility to have plenty of electrical power. We're setting up also a gas electrical plant from trying to see that we're trying to now discussing and to work with converting LNG to electric power. And we have dedicated and development of data center. As the requirement of data explodes over this pandemic, there's lots of requirement of data center. And one is important thing about data center is of course connectivity. Secondly is the nearest to the data hub, which is of course in Singapore. Next. So we are working together with Singapore EDB, together with developing the Nong Sa Digital Park NDP with a master plan to cater for future growth. So we are trying to put an ecosystem because I think it's very important to have innovation, to have a very good ecosystem, not only the infrastructure of our ferry terminal, port, and also that we have been working and supported very strongly with the local government, with the Batam authorities, Batam Industrial Zone authorities, and we are only about 15 minutes away from the international airport of Hang Nadim. Separately, across Hang Nadim, we have a Kabil port, which we have separately. I won't do it in this presentation because that would be too long. Our own industrial park, which is Kabil Industrial Park, which has its own international port, and about just one kilometer away from the Hang Nadim International Airport. But coming back to Nusa Digital Park, this concept is to put a full integrated system where we have education. Okay, the education will also give favor to developing our local talents. Okay, then not only local talents, is that the talents that not only can come from diverse part of Indonesian society, not only for the well-to-do that can have education abroad, but we bring the education abroad to Indonesia, and also provide this talent for the future economy of digital, which I mentioned earlier as a explosive growth and also potential growth, the biggest potential growth in, I think, in Southeast Asia, if not in Asia. Next. So as I mentioned, we are already developing the ecosystem complete with other supporting industry, okay, instead of only education, but we have also a marina, we have also golf courses that intermingle. So it's a complete ecosystem which you can work, live, and play. It's a different environment that we underplay, okay, for the digital, because the digital economy is not only for manufacturing, physical, but actually creating brain power, creating talent. And it's very creating talent. We have to really make an environment which can create innovation. So here we have built the space for industrial park already that we have, as I mentioned earlier, about 100 companies relocated. And we can, hopefully before COVID, we were thinking, or we were expecting to have another 100 companies relocating to Nusa Digital Park. Next. This is the infrastructure that we have. We are building the data center cluster. We have initially started the digital park actually with our digital animation studio, which we started about 10 or 15 years ago. And now the animation studio, we serve Disney, we serve all the international cartoon. For example, we make the Peter Rabbit, we make Garfield over in our studio in Batam. And this is also an example that we have the talent, you know, because these are international films that we already been awarded Emmy Awards. I think we have 3 or 4 Emmy Awards. So we prove that our people in Indonesia, we can have the talent to serve the digital economy. So we have the digital park workspaces. Then separately to complement that, we have built already a resort and marina and hotels, okay? And of course, now, especially during this COVID area, we want to be self-contained. We have our campus and accommodation to be built in the same area of Nusa Digital Park. Next. So back again, I think we are in the business of talent and infrastructure. So we are here working together with Apple. We formed the Infinite Learning with Apple Developer Academy, which is already ready. I think Apple have only 3 in Indonesia, 1 in Surabaya, 1 in Jakarta, and 1 in Batam. And here, this is excellent facility, opportunity to really develop the talent. Okay, it's aimed at developing apps, because now with the digitalization, you have all sort of apps as a disruptive economy to really how to move into the business that is affected by, especially by this COVID restricting travel. So the world most innovative and vibrant app ecosystem is required, I think, for Indonesia. The program focuses on software development, startup creation, and app design with an emphasis on creativity and collaboration. So this program is, we take about 100 over students, I think, with Apple, and the program is free, but it's selected for talented students from all over Indonesia. So we have also the Infinite Learning division of the studio. is developing vocational training. We're working and talking with the Indonesian government to see that whether we can develop more talents for the digital economy. Because it is very important, as the message from our president, that Indonesia needs thousands of technopreneurs, I think, in the future to meet the demanding of the e-commerce in Indonesia. So we also expand the current internal training operation, which we have the LPK license from the Indonesian Ministry of Manpower. We have also set up the incubator program. 3 batches of local startups have been through the program already. An accelerator program, which is currently under discussion to be launched by Q1 2021. The other thing is a very important, interesting innovation that we're looking is the AR, the augmented reality, the artificial intelligence. I think now, especially with the decentralization of education and global supply chain, this is an important factor of the innovation, this artificial intelligence and augmented reality that we are going to start at Nongsa Digital Park. So here we are, we work closely together with industry need, not only from Singapore, but throughout the region. And we feel that we like to invest in industry that give value added to the society and also to the economy of not only Indonesia, but of course the region. So thank you very much for the opportunity for me to make a short presentation of our Nongsa Digital Park, and look forward for any of the participants in this webinar. Once we manage to start opening a green channel between Singapore and Nongsa, to invite you to see and invest in our facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Chris Willen, for your sharing. And indeed, you have shared some very exciting projects going on. And I'm sure the digital sector is also of keen interest by Singapore companies and also some of the startups in Singapore. Okay, we have come to the session on Q&A. All our speakers have already spoken. I just realized that at this moment, there is no question posed to the chat, but if anybody has any last minute question that you'd like to pose to us or to the panelists? Okay, I still hadn't seen, so maybe if you have the time, there's still another session, and then this is the virtual tour of the IID. But before that, I'm sure if you have further questions after this webinar, please feel free to contact either SPF, the Indonesian Embassy, or those contacts that was shown to you during the webinar. Okay, now we have a question. How can we get direct access to business matching with Singapore businessmen? Okay, this is a good question. This is the role of SBF, and also maybe Kadin can also help here. But definitely in Singapore, we have access to our business community. Yeah, our membership is 27,000 strong. So if you would like to meet our Singapore companies, do let us know. Drop us a note. Okay. Any other questions?
Maybe I would like to add something also, that in Kadin we have what we call it a business service desk that also do a lot of business matching to all different countries, especially for Singapore. So you can also contact us, and definitely we will be more than happy to assist that.
Thank you, Parosan. Yes. And also for Singapore companies mentioned by Chairman earlier, we have this special Global Connect program supported by the government. So we have a market specialist, Sham, who can actually sit down with you and go through with you and see how we can help you. And we'll handle you until you have achieved some success in Indonesia, right? Okay, last 1 minute, any more question? I know today we have a lot of information download from all our very distinguished speakers. You probably have all the, we'll try to see if we can get the information available. Okay, another question coming. What is your opinion about the plan to prepare industrial park at Brebis, west part of Central Java, to accommodate factories relocation from China? Okay. Now, this is a question, I'm not sure who can, this is to, I suppose, it didn't say to who, but anybody want to take a step at this? The question is, what is your opinion about the plan to prepare industrial park at Brebis, which is the west part of Central Java, to accommodate factories location from China? Is Brebis more competitive than Kendal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there are a lot of questions.
Yes, now the questions like me.
Tiam, if I may, because to address that particular questions, of course, the government of Indonesia has already preparing another industrial park in Brebes, Central Java, but how this has already been ready to accommodate the relocation, we are not, I think this is an ongoing process, but I think the Indonesian government also announced that while this is not yet ready in Brebes, of course, the industrial parks in Batam can also accommodate all of those need for relocation to Indonesia. And I believe Kendal Industrial Park is also ready. Mr. Stanley is waiting behind the door. As soon as somebody knocking on the door, then. So is that right, Pak Stanley?
Yes.
Thank you, Pak. Yes, we are ready, Pak.
Okay. This is a question to Pak Chris on the Nongsa Digital Park. How is building a tech team in Nongsa Digital Park better than in other locations like India and Vietnam? I'm sure you have answers for this.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that one of the factors is that whatever it is, Singapore is the hub for the media and e-commerce in the region, first. And secondly, we have the big potential, as I mentioned earlier, of Indonesia e-commerce. Thirdly, Nongsa has the most connectivity for the data in Indonesia. So those are the factors that we see that why Nongsa is a very important, I would say, facility for Indonesia and for the region to see that we can develop the tech park.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Pa.
Yes, please.
Yes, because one of the question coming from Brebes about Brebes Industrial Park.
Yeah.
Yes, we did send some of the potential investors, I think in December last year, to Central Java. They visited Kendal, if I'm not mistaken, Brebes as well. But unfortunately, COVID is coming. But I would like to announce that we are working with the China's association like this to organize the webinar as well. And then, of course, I would like to invite industrial parks in Indonesia to participate as well. One of the, I think Kendall's quite come forward as well to approach me in Beijing, Pak Wijaya as well, and of course, Pak Chris. How are you, Pak Chris? We met, I still remember you, we met in Batam. So Of course, by the time when everything's already in place, I will invite all of you as well to participate at our webinar. We organized one only like 2 weeks ago, but this is quite not concentrate on industrial park. This is the sort of information on the current investment ambience in Indonesia. The participants at the Beijing hotel only 50, but participating private sector reached 2,000 at the time. So I think I'm going to do the same as well, concentrating more on the industrial park. I will inform all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Pak Ngurah.
Thanks, Ambassador. I think we are now 10, 11:50, so we have 10 more minutes. We'll try to end this by noon. Let me see. So maybe for those questions that are still coming in,
can I answer one question? Yes,
yes, please. I think there's one from China. Yes.
We have one diaspora in Shanghai. Is quite knowledgeable on artificial intelligence. In fact, he introduced me to a lot of artificial intelligence industries in China. So if you are interested to get in touch with him, you can simply contact me, and then I will link you to him. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Ambassador. I think you are muted.
Yeah, Pak Tiam. So there is also a question here about how the Indonesian government will facilitate in the context of the disruption of COVID. If I may share the information as well here, we have got information from many industrial parks in Batam, as well as also in other parts of Indonesia, concerning the contract that has already been concluded with investors to come. But then, of course, this COVID pandemic, closed most of the borders in most of the countries, and there are already requests whether or not they will be able to travel to Indonesia. Of course, we are taking care of this request, and I think for those essential business trips that allow them to start doing the constructions, the Investment Coordinating Board is providing the facilities to allow them to give them a special entry permit, of course, with the health protocol applied. So far, there are already some of the investors that need to come to Indonesia urgently in order to start their operation because of the relocation has already been facilitated by the government to enter the country with the health protocol applied in order to really ensure the safety of the businesses as well as the safety of the people who are going to work together with them. So the government is now working to develop what we know as a green zone or a travel bubble with some of the countries bilaterally. And we are hoping that this can be concluded soon so that we will be able to start facilitating the trips of the people, the investors to Indonesia. As Pak Stanley mentioned, it was really amazing. He thought that COVID will slow them down, but in fact, they are not slowing down. And I think this is a very good indication. Of course, our embassy here is also ready to facilitate in any way we can to ensure that all of your preparation, all of the preparation that has already been started can, followed up very effectively through the mechanism that we are providing to all of the investors. So once again, I think this is really timely when we discuss about this. And of course, we heard so many optimistic presentations, be it in Kendal Industrial Park as well as in Nongsa Digital Park. And some of the participants here, Pak Yahya mentioned here about his also, availability to be reached for the development of industrial park, which is he mentioned that he has already land that can be utilized. So just once again to underline, feel free to contact SBF, of course, to contact Kadin, as well as the Indonesian Embassy, our office of the Investment Coordinating Board. We already shared the address, the email address, where you can be in touch. So, of course, we are going to bring you to the website of the Indonesia Investment Day 2020. But before that, this is, I like this saying, Pak Tiam, when you like, when the treatment of the investors to Indonesia is good, you are happy with the service, please tell your friends about this. If you are not happy, tell us, how can we help you to make you happy? So we are available for that. And I think we would certainly, together with Pak Jauhari in Beijing, will facilitate, as well as Pak Rosan in Jakarta will facilitate to make your business plan possible. So thank you again for all of the speakers and all of the participants. We have, I think, around more than 170 participants participating in this webinar. And stay tuned. We are starting the weekly webinar starting from August, a roadmap to Indonesia Investment Day 2020 in October 2020. So with that, Pak Tiam, back to you again. And I don't know how we are going to proceed with this, with the tour to the website.
Yes, I think we can start the virtual tour now.
Yeah. Silakan.
Welcome to the 3rd Indonesia Investment Days website. As the Indonesian flagship event for enhancing foreign direct investment from Singapore to Indonesia, the 3rd Indonesia Investment Day will have virtual activities like never before. Weekly webinar with representatives from regional government across Indonesia presenting ready-to-offer project. The main event itself, which is the 3rd Indonesia Investment Day, with special event keynote from high-level government officials. With virtual investment clinic and one-on-one meeting, this event will also be your one-stop solution to fulfill your interests investing in Indonesia. Through this website, you can discover the latest investment opportunities in Indonesia, accessing ready-to-offer projects, and interact with government representatives virtually. All of this by a single click to www.investindonesia.sg.
Thank you. Okay, we have come to the end of the webinar. So I hope you have taken away from this 2-hour section that there are indeed plenty of opportunities in the post-COVID environment in Indonesia. As mentioned by Mr. Teo earlier, my ASEAN team has ready plans to visit Indonesia once the travel is made possible. We will rush it. So please contact us if you're keen to join us. So with that, I'd like to thank once again Ambassador Nora, Ambassador Johari, Chairman SSTO, Pak Rosan, and all our distinguished speakers, Pak Sani, Pak Steny Ang, Pak Chris, and Pak Nerish. Nerish, sorry, I didn't have a chance for you to say anything. for spending your valuable time, especially on a Monday morning, and share your insights with all the participants. So we look forward to our next meeting. Maybe you can spend your next few days or looking at the RID. We have a lot of information and activities for you to expand into Indonesia. So with that, can I say now, bye-bye and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
谢谢 ，Thank you。
谢谢。Bye。